Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, of course, joined by the one and only Michael Cohen. I guess I should just start every show like this and say, Michael Cohen, you called it, brother. You called what was about to happen. Donald Trump filing before the appellate division exactly what Cohen said he was going to do, saying that he was unable to come up with the cash or even a surety bond in order to stay the enforcement of the $464 million judgment against him in the New York Attorney General civil fraud case. As before the judgment was handed down, Michael Cohen, this is what you said was going to happen. But let me just read the portions from Donald Trump's own filing so you could hear in Trump's own words, and then I want to get your reaction. Posting a full undertaking is a practical impossibility, says Donald Trump. And he talks about how diligent efforts since the time of filing the opening brief before the appellate division, including countless hours negotiating with one of the largest insurance companies in the world, have proven that obtaining an appeal bond in the full amount of judgments is not possible under the circumstances presented. The amount of the judgment with interest exceeds $464 million, and very few bonding companies will even consider bonding anything like this. And then one more portion, Michael Cohen. You know how Donald Trump and Eric and Don Jr., they're all out there saying, we're the biggest company that there is. We're the best real estate company out there. There's no other real estate companies bigger or who have better books than ours. Well, in the court filing, this is what Donald Trump's lawyers wrote. In short, a bond of this size is rarely, if ever, seen. In the unusual circumstances that a bond of this size is issued, it is provided to the largest public companies in the world, not to individuals or privately held businesses. So he's saying we're like a mom and pop shop. We're so small. We can't afford this. Oh, boo-hoo-hoo. Michael Cohen, softball. Take it away.
Well, it's a softball. We called this once before, weeks and weeks ago. And exactly as I predicted, exactly as you and I had spoken, Ben, is exactly what is currently taking place. First of all, there's a multitude of reasons why he's unable to obtain the bond that he's referring to. First and foremost is the amount. And one of the things that I had said to you early on is that the amount is so significant that no one firm would be able to take it. You know, when we used to do the insurance, I was part of the gang of four. It was me, Weisselberg, Calamari, and this guy, Ron Liebman. One of the things that we used to do is we used to spread the risk out amongst a multitude. It's called stacking, right? So one guy takes 0 to say 25 million. And believe it or not, that 0 to 25 million is more expensive than the 100 to 200 million. And you say, well, that doesn't make sense. How come? Because that's where all the risk lies, in the 0 to 25. Well, in this case, we already know that you're talking about $500 million with a bonding company. They take 3%. So you have about 15 million right off the bat on the 454 million. So, you know, now you're already at 470 plus the 9% statutory interest. This is no joke. This is real dollars. And the question then becomes, okay, let's even assume for a moment, for some reason my glasses aren't even sitting straight. So let's assume for the moment that he, on appeal, they say, you know what, the disgorgement amount is high and it shouldn't have been $400 million. It should have been 350. Okay, no problem. Then they're only bonded up to that 350 plus, again, the 9% statutory interest plus their fee. They still have to come up with that money. Okay, how do they get paid back? Real estate is historically a terrible, terrible asset within which to take. Now, we're not talking about Dog the Bounty Hunter here, all right, where somebody owes $10,000 15,000 because they failed to show up for a court appearance. We're talking about $500 million. In order for a bonding company or an insurer to feel comfortable, they would need at least 2 times the amount. Well, that works potentially, except for the fact that before even the bonding company can take their money, Uncle Sam has to take their money on the sale of the asset. It's not as if though Donald's not going to owe capital gain, long-term capital gain, and that whether it's city, state, as well as federal are to be applied. These companies exist in New York, so they pay city, state, and federal. It's an effective tax rate of approximately 40%. So you need 40% more than the billion. So you technically need about 1.4 billion of assets in order to offset the 500 million. So I'm hoping you all understand the problem that's going on now. This is a much bigger situation than just, okay, fine, he loses Trump Tower, big shit. What do you think Trump Tower is actually worth? It's based upon, first of all, it's commercial property, and commercial real estate in New York is right now not doing so well. It's trading at like 30, 40% below its high. So, we're not talking about, a $500 million asset. At best, what's he going to get? Times the rent roll? And he's 2 of the 26 floors that's there. The whole thing is a nightmare for him. What is he going to do? That's the question everybody keeps asking me. What is he going to do when Tish James starts grabbing the assets? Another question I get is, what is Tish James going to do once she starts grabbing assets? And I would like to turn around and say to Tish, very simple. Call me. I'll tell you exactly what to do. I know exactly who'd be interested in buying which asset and for how much. Doesn't really matter, because you have to go after not 1, not 2, not 5, not 10, all the assets that exist in New York.
Cohen, if these assets were really worth what Donald Trump claims they are, for example, he says Mar-a-Lago is worth about $1.8 billion, which would mean that he'd probably have over $1 billion of equity into Mar-a-Lago if it was truly valued at $1.8 billion, which it's not. You and I both agree it's a very valuable property if it were a residential property, not a commercial club, and if Donald Trump had not signed the deed to pay less property taxes, but maybe 500 million, 600, not $1.8 billion. But if it was 1.8 billion, or if his other assets, Doral or whatever, were as valuable, wouldn't it be as simple? Wouldn't banks be lining up? Not forget the surety bond issue. Wouldn't banks be lining up for a refi and trying to figure this out? And it would be a fairly easy deal to have if he had all this equity in the property. But of course he doesn't. So now he goes with his hands out, basically begging the appellate division, almost acting like he's indigent. Like he's almost citing that line of case law of indigent people who can't appeal unless they get relief. This is someone who's bragged about being a billionaire during the case itself. He's bragged how rich he is and how the values have been undervalued by the Democratic judge, as he says.
Ben,
and now he goes to the court and says, please, I need your help. I need your help.
It was the basis for the entire political campaign in 2016. I'm really rich. I'm really rich. I can do for the country what I did for my own company, right? And so I can make the country successful. And it's out of control, right? What this has really shown, Ben, is the fact that Donald took a company that was built by his father, because Fred Trump was really rich, by the way, especially for that times, and he fucked up the whole company. That's really what it shows. Let me say this. He could raise the $500 million in cash if he really wanted to. One of the concerns that he has is he knows that he's not going anywhere with the appellate court. Judge Engoron's 93-page decision is written like a textbook. It lays out the game. So easy for the appellate court to turn around and say, motion denied, writ denied, denied. And then he knows he's going to lose the assets. For example, and again, only because I know the company as well as I do, Donald has a 30% carry interest in two properties, 555 something Avenue, which is in San Francisco. It's the Bank of America building. And then he has like 1290 Avenue, or 1290 Avenue of the Americas here in New York. Two very valuable pieces of property that are 70% owned and controlled and operated by Vornado. Now, Steve Roth, the CEO of this publicly traded real estate mega billion-dollar fund, I'm sure you've all heard of Vornado. They could easily buy out Donald's 30% interest. And from when I spoke with Dan Alexander the other night, they did some calculations, and he could probably pull off, after his taxable consequence, probably around 200 to 225 million. Maybe let's even go crazy and say up to 240 million in cash by selling out his 30% interest. And I believe that that's possibly after taxes. So he's halfway there. Great. What next? You sell Seven Springs? Seven Springs is worth like $30 to $40 million. Still not too shabby, but he only paid like 6.8 for it. So he's going to have, again, long-term capital gain. New York, that $30, $40 million sale will ultimately net him what? After whatever mortgage he may have attached to that, it's going to net him what? 10 million, 15 million? Okay, add that to the 240. Now you're at 255. You're still approximately halfway there. He's going to have to sell all of his assets in order to cover it. But at least now he does have some cash on hand. So, let's say he has 100 million or 90 million on cash on hand. No problem. Put up all your cash. The only problem is he needs that for operating the business and for his living expenses and so on. So I'm trying to sort of lay out the scenario here that he legitimately has to sell everything in New York in order to cover this. Now, you bring up a good point that he could sell Mar-a-Lago, he could sell the Doral and so on. The problem is those assets will be very difficult for Tish James to get her hands on because they're outside of the state of New York. And then what would have to happen is he would have to attempt to take this New York judgment and domesticate it in Florida, and then get the Florida courts to approve the judgment. Domesticated is how they describe it, and then go after the assets in Florida. But in light of the fact that you have folks like Judge Eileen Cannon, you also have Ron DeSantis as the governor, they would never let it happen. So it's really the assets in New York, possibly New Jersey, that are at most risk. And that includes, by the way, he's got a couple of apartments over on Park Avenue in a building. He's got a bunch of commercial properties on Central Park South, Central Park West, on Lexington Avenue, on First Avenue. Like I said, when the time comes, if Tish James needs somebody to organize this on an Excel spreadsheet for a very small fee, I am more than happy to do it. Be about time. I am extremely proud to be part, Ben, and you to be along with me as part of this repatriation of the $500 million to the great state of New York from one of the biggest fraudsters out there.
Absolutely. Look, and Donald Trump, in his motion to the appellate court, doesn't even lay out the efforts that he's taken to do all of the things that you said. He just basically says, I went to 30 surety companies. They all turned me down. Chubb almost accepted me. Then at the last minute, they rejected me. So appellate division, treat me like I'm indigent, treat me like I'm poor, and just stop the enforcement of the judgment. He doesn't say, like, by the way, the testimony that came out, I thought he had, and you mentioned this before, should there be a perjury investigation into him? Because I thought there was $400 million in cash. So at the very least, put the $400 million up. He doesn't talk about alternatives. He just frames it as, when you read it, I'm indigent. I don't have money. No one wants to deal with me because I am a fraudster. Give me the benefit of the doubt as a fraudster and now stay the enforcement of a judgment for the fraud that I committed. You raised this issue. Why isn't the Manhattan District Attorney looking into, or maybe they should be, the same way they did with Weisselberg? Perjury committed by Donald Trump, perjury committed by Eric, perjury committed by Don Jr. And also what's not being discussed as well. And also what's not being discussed as well is that in Engoron's order, that 92-page masterpiece, it does not include anything about the perjury conviction of Weisselberg because Alina Haba and Trump's other lawyers concealed that or were kind of ignorant to it or willfully ignorant to it. And so Engoron did not include that. So the only subsequent event that's occurred since the order that we know about is the chief financial officer pleading guilty to felony perjury, turning a courtroom into a felony crime scene. And now Trump's begging the appellate division, please help me, please help me. And all of Donald Trump's, cult followers, and I saw some poll that said 50% of Trump supporters would absolutely still support him if he literally killed somebody on Fifth Avenue. But the Trump, I thought it would actually be more than that. But the Trump supporters like, well, you don't understand business. He's not liquid. So this is how rich people are.
Right. See, it's funny because there's a couple of folks in our comments section, and they turn around and they say, how could somebody with this much real estate have no liquidity into it? So let me be clear. There is equity in these assets. All right, there is. So let's just use, for example, 40 Wall Street. All right, 40 Wall Street is a 1.3 million square foot commercial building across the street from Wall Street. And it's obviously on Wall Street. It's right across from the exchange. When you are valuing a piece of property, especially right now in the commercial real estate world, what you do is you're basing it off a multiple of the gross rent roll or the NOI, the net on your investment, your rate of return. You take a multiple. Now, when the world was on fire and everything was great in real estate, maybe you can get, let's say, 12 times gross rent roll or another multiple off of the rate of return. A lot of times what they try to do is off of per square footage, but it all works out to roughly the same thing because everybody just wants to get to the maximum number that you can get. When you are in a situation like New York is right now with commercial real estate being on the decline, maybe you can get, 8 times, 9 times, whatever it is. Remember, let's say hypothetically that the asking price on this property would be $350 million. Donald Trump's basis in this property is $1 million. He bought it in 1980 for $1 million. Again, you now have a 399, or let's say it's $349 million capital gain, long-term capital gain, 23% federal. You have city and state, 13 and 8%. All right, it's like an adjusted gross taxable return, a taxable rate of, let's say, 40%. So on your 300, you're talking about like $125 million off that 350 number. So what do you get left with? 2.25. All right. That's what he's left with. Not so bad, right? He's 2.25 there. He also has the $200 million from so on. Fine. Let's say all in all, after everything, this 425 million. No problem. He still needs an additional 100 million. What other assets is he going to sell? That's the point. All right. The point is, oh, I apologize. He doesn't end up with the 2.25 because he has like a 90 or $100 million mortgage that's attached to that property. That comes off as well. So now it's not, say 100 million that he needs. It's more like 200 million. And that's the problem. There are mortgages on these properties. On top of the mortgage, you have a approximate 40% taxable consequence. That's why people don't seem to understand all of his assets, all of them, regardless of how low the basis is. And on some of the assets, like his parking garages, he took the garages when he was the sponsor and the builder of the condominiums or the hotel. He took that space for himself. So technically, he has a zero basis in that asset. So he's paying, again, on 100% of the sale price at an adjustable taxable rate of about 40%. On top of that, if he took money out, if he leveraged it or mortgaged it or hypothecated it, that has to be taken care of after Uncle Sam gets their tax. So it doesn't leave him with a whole lot. And then he's got the golf courses. Golf courses aren't worth anything other than, they're land. And the land seems to be valuable because they're in very good, expensive areas. The problem is people already paid. They're called members. The members pay bonds. Everything with Trump is so fucking for schmadrade that people don't know if they're coming or going. And that's why Tish James is a little bit, as they would say, verblunget. He's a little, crazed because they can't figure out exactly. Today's a Yiddish day for me. They can't figure out exactly how to do X, Y, and Z, and so on. I could sit with her for about 3 hours and set the whole thing up on an Excel spreadsheet. She sleep like a baby at night.
This also shows, though, that Donald Trump is a national security threat because our foreign enemies know that he can be bought, how desperate he is. It's why he would never, same thing with Jared Kushner, why they'd never be entitled to actually get security clearances. So just think about that Trump would never be entitled to get a security clearance. Kushner couldn't get a security clearance, yet he was given a job with the most sensitive information, which many believe that he turned over to MBS, or at least that MBS was bragging that he has Kushner in his pocket and that Kushner gave him, really top secret lists as well. But this is from earlier today, Cohen. This is what Donald Trump had to say moments ago about Putin in an interview. Play this clip.
People don't realize that. They say, I like Putin. I got along with Putin great. I got along with President Xi great. That's a good thing, not a bad thing.
I mean, again, he's bragging about that. But I want to turn to another topic right here. Your buddy, Alejandro Brito, is back in the news, representing. You saw that.
Oh,
he's not actually Cohen's buddy. He's Donald Trump's lawyer who sued Michael Cohen in a case for, what was it, Cohen? Was it 300 or 500 million?
500 million. And again, to so many of you brigaders that joined me in terms of like with the GoFundMe and helped me to raise the money in order to defeat the orange-crusted Mandarin Mussolini and his idiot lawyer. Yeah, we were successful. Yeah, Take it away, Ben.
So Alejandro Brito was representing Donald Trump. They filed the lawsuit against you, Cohen, in the Southern District of Florida, Miami Division. I guess they were trying to avoid what Judge Middlebrooks, who previously sanctioned them $1 million. So they were trying to file it in the Miami Division versus the West Palm Beach or the Palm Beach County Division. In any event, Cohen, you noticed Donald Trump's deposition right away in a case that Trump sued you for. And then Donald Trump tried to delay his deposition. You and I both said there's no way he's sitting for a deposition. He's thin-skinned. He's afraid of Cohen. There's no way he's sitting for the depo. You stuck to it thanks to the support of the brigaders who were helping out with your legal team. So thank you, everybody who helped out Michael Cohen there. Donald Trump refused to sit for the deposition. And then at the last minute, the day before his deposition, Trump dismissed the case against you. So why am I mentioning that? Because Alejandro Brito and Trump are back filing this lawsuit against ABC and George Stephanopoulos in the same Miami division, Southern District of Florida, again, because they're trying to avoid Judge Middlebrooks, who sanctioned Trump and Alina Haba about $1 million in another frivolous case they filed. And here's what it alleges. It says, this is an action arising from defendant, referring to Stephanopoulos and ABC's, transmission and publication of intentionally false and defamatory statements made to numerous third parties about Donald Trump. More specifically, and as set forth in greater detail below, on Sunday, March 10th, 2024, defendant George Stephanopoulos, during the airing of his weekly television show, This Week with George Stephanopoulos, falsely stated on several occasions that Donald Trump had been found liable by multiple juries for the rape of E. Jean Carroll. These statements were and remain false and were made by defendant Stephanopoulos with actual malice or with a reckless disregard for the truth, given that defendant Stephanopoulos knows that these statements are patently and demonstrably false. And then he goes, indeed, a jury expressly found that plaintiff did not commit these acts. So Trump is trying to argue, look, the jury said that I'm a sexual abuser. The jury said Trump sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll. They didn't say rape, although federal judge Lewis Kaplan made it very clear what the jury's ruling meant, and that's what George Stephanopoulos was citing. First, Cohen, let me share with you the portion of that interview between Stephanopoulos and Nancy Mace, and then I want to go through federal judge Lewis Kaplan's multiple orders to show you why Trump is going to lose. Then I want to get your take on it. But first, let's play George Stephanopoulos with Nancy Mace from March 10th, and this is the subject matter of Trump's lawsuit. Take it away, Salty.
Judge.
Guilty of doing.
He defended himself over that and denies that it ever happened, but he was not found guilty in a criminal court of law. It was a civil judgment.
So is that the distinction you're making?
Abuse.
A civil judgment is okay, but a criminal judgment is not?
This is different, and they didn't even input all of the evidence into the civil case either, because some of the information she provided wasn't even accurate or correct. But to sit here and ask me as a rape victim to try to shame me for my political choices is wrong, and I think it's offensive. I mean,
you can repeat that again and again and again.
And I'm going
to
because I find it deeply offensive.
You don't find it offensive that Donald Trump has been found liable for rape?
I find it offensive as a rape victim that you're trying to shame me for my political choices. And I've said again repeatedly, E. Jean Carroll has made a mockery out of rape by joking about it. I don't find that funny.
Well,
rape is not funny.
You've made it perfectly clear.
Rape is serious.
You've made it perfectly clear.
Rape
you're comfortable.
is serious.
It is serious.
It's not funny, and it shouldn't be made a.
Okay, so let me just show you what federal judge Lewis Kaplan said. And I could show you multiple orders, but I'll just show you two. So one of the findings that federal judge Lewis Kaplan had to make was that because of the jury verdict from May of 2023, that has what's called collateral estoppel impact, that Trump would not be permitted to argue that he did not rape E. Jean Carroll in the more recent trial where Trump was hit with an $83.3 million verdict. So in ruling on that, federal judge Lewis Kaplan wrote the following. Consequently, the fact that Mr. Trump sexually abused, indeed raped Ms. Carroll, has been conclusively established and is binding in this case. This is from a federal judge who's presiding over the E. Jean Carroll case. And here is another order by the same judge. And again, I could show you more, but you get the point. This is what federal judge Lewis Kaplan said about Donald Trump. Mr. Trump, quote, sexually abused Ms. Carroll, implicitly determined that he forcibly penetrated her digitally. In other words, that Mr. Trump, in fact, did rape Ms. Carroll, as that term commonly is used and understood in context outside of the New York penal law. So you see there, Cohen, federal judge Lewis Kaplan made these findings, and Stephanopoulos was using the findings of a federal judge. What say you?
Is there really anything to say? Nancy Mace is a disgrace, plain and simple. The fact that she wants to attack George Stephanopoulos for reading a determination by federal judge Kaplan, which well establishes what he was saying, and then try to reverse shame George for asking a question that certainly did not inure to the benefit of Donald Trump. And because she is an acolyte, she is a sycophant of Donald's and a VP wannabe, at least wants to be on the short list. She will do everything, including embarrass the living shit out of herself, by going on national television like ABC and arguing with Stephanopoulos and doing even worse, sort of shaming E. Jean Carroll for speaking out and going to the courts in order to get justice for what she claimed had happened to her. And that was ultimately determined that she was telling the truth. She's a warrior, E. Jean Carroll. And Nancy Mace, who is also, to my understanding, a survivor of rape, should not be shaming and not be trying to shame somebody who unfortunately went through the same horrific scenario as she did. She is a fucking disgrace, and she should be immediately thrown out. She is not who we want as members of Congress. And when I always talk about how Midas Touch Network, Political Beatdown, my Mea Culpa podcast, Legal AF, the Midas Brothers, Meiselas Brothers, one of the things that I try to say that we do here all the time is we try to build a community. And the purpose of this community is to ensure that our voices, our opinions, our belief system is upheld, especially during important elections, whether it's the midterms or the general election. And by us growing, and we are growing, look at the numbers that we start to get here again and again and again on Political Beatdown, like #1 on YouTube for our hour. Enough people are tuning in and they're getting the understanding that Ben and I are trying to put out there into our ecosystem. The point is, you got to be registered to vote. You cannot be a couch potato during this election system, this election cycle. We all need to get out there. We need to vote. We need to get our friends to the vote, to the voting booths, to the voting centers. We have to make sure that they vote Democrat. And people like Nancy Mace, if we could build this community big enough, cannot survive. They would be tossed out, and people who are like-minded, who are reasonable. I'm not saying that we have to agree on everything. I'm not even saying we have to agree on half of the things, but at least have common decency, not to try to shame a fellow rape victim. It's deplorable. It's disgusting. It's inhuman. It's un-American. It's un-everything. And that's unfortunately what she and like this Senator Britt, who gave the reply to the State of the Union, this is just who they are. And this is what they've become. They're willing to sell their soul. They're willing to sell our democracy down the tubes, all for the benefit of one man.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, Alina Haba is in trouble. I mean, there's this Bedminster lawsuit that a victim of sexual assault at Bedminster filed against the facility, and then entered into a settlement agreement there, but carved out a potential lawsuit against Alina Haba in the settlement agreement for kind of misguiding her and kind of coercing her to enter into a hush money settlement agreement with the property to kind of help Alina Haba get into good graces with Donald Trump. We'll talk about that when we come back from our break. But we're doing something really cool after the show. I always love doing this, and this is where we get to meet all of you. So if you ever wanted to meet Michael Cohen immediately after this show ends, make sure you sign up for patreon.com/political beatdown. We do our after show after the show, which we don't post live and we don't do live, but we post it shortly after the show, We're going to be doing that on an exclusive Zoom meeting with all of you if you join patreon.com/political beatdown. We don't have outside investors here at the Midas Touch Network or on Political Beatdown, so it's one of the ways we build this network in kind of a fun way. We don't mean to like gatekeep or anything. We're just trying to find unique ways to do it when you have entities like Fox that are funded by literally billions and billions of dollars. So we try to do it with fun ways like Patreon. So if you sign up now, patreon.com/political beatdown, that's patreon.com/political beatdown. As soon as this show ends at 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, we're going to jump on the Zoom chat. If you look at the feed, there's the exclusive Zoom link, and then you'll be able to ask us questions. We're going to spend 30 minutes, and Cohen will answer all of your questions, rapid fire style. So make sure you sign up for that. But we still have a lot more show to go here. Let's take a quick break. We will be right back, and let's talk about Alina Haba and more. Please.
Working hard, purchasing a home or a business, having something to leave your family when you're gone. I mean, that's the American dream. The things we build our future around are the things worth protecting. Making an estate plan now means gaining security over your assets and peace of mind, not just for you and your loved ones, but for the family. With Trust and Will, you can create and manage a custom estate plan starting, get a load of this, at just $159. So go to trustandwill.com/beat for 10% off plus free document shipping. Now, I want to be clear about something. As a lawyer, I've seen what happens when someone passes without a will. It's called intestate, and it's a nightmare. The Trust and Will website, it's easy to navigate, and it makes the process incredibly straightforward. And I assure you that having a will and trust will give you the peace of mind when you put your head down at night. How and to whom you leave your property, that should be your decision, not the government's. Trust and Will gives you and your family easy access and control of your entire estate plan. Your family will be fully prepared and protected with your will and trust being managed online. Each will and trust, remember, is state specific, so it's customized to your specific needs. I mean, you might want to have care wishes or the nomination of guardians, final arrangement plans, or even who should have power of attorney. So ensure that your family and loved ones avoid the lengthy, expensive, and complicated legal proceedings, or worse, the state deciding what happens to your hardworking assets. Trust and Will has simplified the entire process of estate planning. Trust and Will has made estate planning accessible and affordable. Trust and Will saves your loved ones time and unnecessary stress by having all of your documents in one place with bank-level encryption. I mean, their simple step-by-step process guides you from start to finish with ease. And live customer support is available through phone, chat, or email. Get the peace of mind you deserve today by creating your estate plan with Trust and Will. With an overall rating of excellent and thousands of 5-star reviews on Trustpilot, Trust and Will is used by hundreds of thousands of families and counting. So go right now and secure your assets and protect your loved ones with Trust and Will. And get 10% off plus free shipping of your estate plan documents by visiting trustandwill.com/beat. That's 10% off and free shipping at trustandwill.com/beat.
And now let's take a quick break to talk about our next partner, Roan. If you're like me, you understand the pains of finding out what to wear. Let's face it, most clothes are uncomfortable or too tight or never actually the size that you really are, and not to mention the annoyance of trying to put together a good outfit. And when you finally do have a good fit, you can only wear it for a few hours before you have an important meeting or dinner, and then you have to change. Everyone wants to dress their best and look good at all times because, frankly, it's a confidence booster. So here's the deal. Men's closets were due for a radical reinvention, and Roan stepped up to the challenge. Roan's commuter collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible set of products known to man. And here's why. Roan helps you get ready for any occasion with the Commuter Collection, which offers the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, and polos. You never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Roan Commuter Collection. Roan's comfortable 4-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your commute to work to your 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident without the hassle. With Roan's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the products. It's that easy. With the Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Roan is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. I absolutely love Roan. This has truly become my go-to commuter fit. We're on the move a lot, whether it's jumping from meeting to meeting or catching a flight or an important dinner. The Roan Commuter Collection has never let me down. The versatility and overall comfort of the collection is undefeated. And even after I wear it all day, I still feel super fresh because of that Gold Fusion anti-odor technology. The Commuter Collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. So right now, head to roan.com/Cohen, that's Cohen, and use promo code Cohen to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/Cohen, Cohen, and use code Cohen. It's time to find your corner office. And now, back to the video.
There you have it. You get Political Beatdown, you get Michael Cohen, you get me, and then you get Jordy Meiselas. You get Jordy Meiselas with the ad reads right there. But check out our pro-democracy sponsors. The discount codes are in the description of YouTube and on the audio podcast. And, Jordy vets those sponsors. I know you love our products. I do as well. And look, we have to find unique ways to keep building this platform. So it's always appreciated when you have pro-democracy sponsors step in. Let's talk about this story that broke earlier in the day, how Bedminster and the entity controlling Bedminster entered into a settlement agreement that has Alina Haba out to dry. And this is a case involving a sexual assault allegation by an employee at Bedminster who was working there, who alleges that her supervisor had sexually harassed her. She ended up entering into a settlement agreement after firing her lawyer, and over a 2-week period, this individual, her name is Alice Bianco, was speaking with Alina Haba, advising her, kind of, acting as like a friend and saying things, it's alleged, like, you don't need a lawyer and we'll just deal with it this way. And this was like during the period too where Haba was trying to endear herself to Donald Trump. And this is one of the early cases that kind of led to Donald Trump putting her on in a more robust role on the legal team. And ultimately, Alice Bianco ended up suing, saying that the settlement agreement, the underlying agreement that she had entered into, that was kind of styled as a severance agreement, was permeated with fraud, and that Haba had basically also provided tax guidance that was ultimately incorrect and made all of these promises. And as soon as Bianco signed the agreement, she wanted to reach out to Haba and say, well, what else should I do? And then Haba started ignoring her and saying, really, like, don't contact me anymore. I don't want to deal with you, once the agreement was kind of signed, sealed, and delivered. So Bianca sued to get out of the agreement. And ultimately, the parent company that runs Bedminster, that's run by the Trump organization, settled with Bianco for $82,500. But there's a carve out in there that allows Bianco to sue Haba. And Bianco's lawyer basically says that that's probably what they are going to do. And there seems to potentially be some state bar implications for Haba as well, based on the way she, conducted herself here. And so I think soon we'll be seeing a lawsuit against Haba. What was kind of intimated here is, perhaps Haba's engaged in behind the scenes settlement negotiations right now with Bianco. And there was another case for, I think, discrimination and harassment that Haba had previously settled as well. And so, Cohen, what do you make of all of this?
It's going to be another person thrown under the bus. Look, that's the problem when you work with Donald. I mean, today we know Peter Navarro had to surrender to federal law enforcement, and he was put into a federal correctional institution. Why? Because he was directed by Trump not to appear for a congressional subpoena. Or in his mind, he thought he was doing what Donald wanted him to do. It's one or the other, regardless. All right. It is for the benefit of Donald Trump. Very soon, come April, I think it's April 6th or April 10th, Alan Weisselberg is going in for sentencing. He'll find out how many more days he's going to have to do, that 78-year-old schmuck that he is. How many more days he's going to do in Rikers fucking Island because he's protecting Donald J. Trump. I mean, how many more people have to go away? Paul Manafort, who is now coming back to the Trump campaign, did time. Why? Because of his involvement and connection with Trump, even though he committed tax evasion and all sorts of other crazy shit. But, that's Paul Manafort's a whole nother set. Roger Stone, myself. Look how many people, George Papadopoulos. How many people have gone to jail as a direct result of being part of that inner circle of Donald Trump? Well, you know what? A lot. And now it's time for Donald Trump to face his own accountability.
Yeah, I want to talk about as much as you can discuss what's happening in the Manhattan District Attorney criminal case, because Justice Merchan does seem to be moving the case along. Obviously, last week we learned about these 31,000 documents from the Department of Justice. After further review and reading, they don't really seem to be all that material to the underlying case, but who knows? I don't want to definitively say that. Some may be. So lots of people were worried, is this going to derail the case? Justice Merchan continued the case or adjourned it for about 30 days to mid-April, but dozens of motion in limines, these pre-trial motions, were pending before Justice Merchan, and he made a lot of rulings over the past 24, 48 hours that would be consistent with someone moving the case along. One of the things that Trump wanted was to exclude your testimony, exclude Stormy Daniels' testimony, exclude Karen McDougal's testimony, exclude statements that Donald Trump had made and posted and wrote about in books. Donald Trump also wanted to have this semi-advice of counsel or presence of counsel defense that Trump basically made up, which Justice Merchan rejected.
He also wanted to exclude the Billy Bush tape. That's the grab him by the pussy tape. He wanted to exclude a whole series of documents. Somebody has failed to explain to Sharon Necklace and
Susan
Necklace and to what's his name, Todd Blanche, that Donald Trump does not control how the court runs. He doesn't get to control who the witnesses are. He doesn't get to control what documents are put into evidence. All right. Something that, of course, Haba the Horrible had no idea how to do either. Along with, which was shocking, Chris Kise and Cliff Robert. They just made a complete shit show out of that, and that's all that they're trying to do. And that game plan has not fared very well for their legal team. Their legal strategy is flawed. All right, they should be basing their defense on documentary evidence, corroborating, but not made up stuff. They should be trying to do it off of documents, assuming any exist, that legitimize their position, instead of thinking that the way that they're going to win this case is by attacking everyone's credibility, whether it's the judge's law clerk, the witnesses, the testimony, the documents. It's not a good strategy. And why he's going for it, I don't know. Really bad advice.
Yeah, but Justice Merchan does seem he's moving this case along. Regarding the Access Hollywood tape itself, Justice Merchan said, we don't need to actually play the tape. It can be described, and the context within which it was released back in 2016 can be described. But the tape itself, Justice Merchan ruled, that was the only, I guess, if you want to say, somewhat of a win that Donald Trump got from his motion to eliminate. The tape itself can't be played, but all the other stuff that Donald Trump does not want to be introduced as evidence, all that is going to come in. And, I think, we'll see what happens at this hearing on March 25th, next Monday, regarding these 31,000 documents. And there was an additional 15 and I think 73,000 pages that were provided a few weeks back as well. We'll see what Justice Merchan does there. But, I think this case is going to go in April or the first week of May, the latest, but we will see. Do you feel, setting aside, we talked a lot about court cases because there's a lot of updates there. Trump's speech in Dayton, Ohio, over this past weekend, Cohen, was one of the first times that I actually saw mainstream media, legacy media, whatever you want to call them, that their coverage started to be like, wait a minute. So you're telling me that Donald Trump has replaced our national anthem with the J6th anthem and changed the words, and does this at the beginning of all of his, rallies and events? And, he's using terms like bloodbath, and he praises the insurrectionists and calls them hostages. And he talks about how President Biden beat Barack Obama in the election. And it was the first time that all of the things that we've been saying, which is why we have to say them over and over and over again here, and why all of you brigaders who are watching this are so important to this, because the media is not doing their job. So you have to show them their clips. But it really felt, Cohen, that the tide is turning. I hate talking about polls, but the polling is showing the tide is turning. I don't want to go into polling, but it is showing that the tide is turning. There does seem to be changes happening, and it feels different, but feelings are anecdotal. But nonetheless, I think you see it in the data, in the coverage. What do you think, Michael Cohen?
Yeah. So my thought is, the way that is probably the best indicator of what's going on is the number of small dollar donations that are being made to each of the candidates. Trump is flailing like a fish, like literally a fish out of water. Their numbers are dropping month after month and then week after week, while Biden's just continues to grow. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Biden campaign now has something like $150 million in the war chest, whereas Trump has something like 33 million in their war chest. It needs to be explained that people, while they still have their, we'll call it their issue with Biden for whatever their single issue may be, they trust him. They trust him as it relates to democracy. And when they see Donald Trump, what I see when I see Donald Trump is not democracy. I see the word autocracy. And I think that notion is scaring enough Americans into understanding that being lethargic and being apathetic to this upcoming election is the only way that Donald Trump ends up pulling it off. If everybody gets out to vote, this isn't even going to be a race, which is exactly why von Schitzenpants is out there already beginning to spread the big lie number 2. He's already out there doing it.
Trump is already framing this as he's the loser, and that it's fraud, and that it's all fake, and that it's deep state. He's already running that playbook again, over and over again. I want to just share with you, first, Salty, I think we have this clip where it's at the beginning of the event where Donald Trump praises the insurrectionists. It's after he runs the J6th anthem. I mean, just think about this. I mean, for me, Cohen, I represented Colin Kaepernick when Donald Trump said, get the SOB off the field, where Colin peacefully took a knee during the playing of the national anthem. And all of the MAGAs were saying, oh, that's so disrespectful. How dare you do that? Donald Trump took the national anthem. He did a remix of it with insurrectionists. He destroyed the anthem, and then he praises the insurrectionists. Let's play this clip if we've got it.
Well, thank you very much. And you see the spirit from the hostages, and that's what they are, as hostages. They've been treated terribly and very unfairly, and you know that, and everybody knows that. And we're going to be working on that soon as the first day we get into office. We're going to save our country, and we're going to work with the people to treat those unbelievable patriots, and they were unbelievable patriots and are. You see the spirit just cheering, they're cheering while they're doing that, and they did that in prison, and it's a disgrace, in my opinion.
I mean, when you say that, it's so disqualifying. Cohen, I want you to give the two-finger salute. Before doing that, I want to remind everybody who's watching this that as soon as this show ends in about 2 minutes, go to patreon.com/political beatdown. And then you'll be able to access an exclusive Zoom meeting where you'll get to meet with Michael Cohen and me in the Zoom meeting, and you'll be able to ask questions on the chat, and we'll respond rapid fire. So if you ever wanted to meet Michael Cohen in a Zoom, right now it's patreon.com/political beatdown. And as soon as this show ends also, we'll have some more great hot takes up on our channel as well. Cohen, let me give you the final word and let you give the two-finger salute.
So final word is, I am now, percolating as to who is going to get the two-finger salute for the day, because it is towards the end. I'm going to ask everybody, do me a favor, please, mea culpa with the blue background icon. Subscribe to it. If you subscribe to it, if you're already a listener, if you're going to do it, hit the multiple blue hearts so I know you're with me on this. We have some great Harry Littman is on it. I have John Avlon, who's going to be coming on the show on Friday. We've had everyone from Ben Stiller to Rosie O'Donnell to Joy Behar. We've had every politician, Congressman Raskin. Let me know that you are a fan of the Mea Culpa podcast with the new RSS feed that's through the Midas Touch Network. Hit that blue so I know you're with me. And who do you guys think that I'm going to give the two-finger salute to? It has to be the stupid ass that she is, Nancy Mace, for literally disrespecting every single woman out there who, unfortunately, God forbid, a billion times has unfortunately had to deal with this type of situation in their life. The most disgusting thing that can happen, taking advantage, sexually assaulting, raping a woman. Absolutely despicable. For her to shit on it and to try to go after George Stephanopoulos for asking her how she could be out there supporting somebody who was charged by a jury of his peers with that crime, and then now to turn around and to be the impetus for filing this 500 or 400 whatever $1 million lawsuit, which is identical to the one that they failed with against me. Nancy, fuck you. Period. End of story.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of new members join patreon.com/political beatdown right now. A lot of people want to join this Zoom meeting. A lot of people. It's going to be a very crowded Zoom meeting. Patreon.com/political beatdown. Meet Michael Cohen right now. Cohen, we got to sign on to that Zoom. Let's do it. Patreon.com/political beatdown. Sign up now. The way you find it, look at the feed, and then in one of the feeds, it talks about the Zoom link, Zoom meeting. Click that link. Michael Cohen and I are joining it now. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Shout out to the Beatdown Brigaders, and shout out to the Midas Mighty. Hit subscribe.